For years, we've been told the secret to a long life is diet, exercise, and good genes. But a massive 50,000 person study from Japan found something else entirely. Something you don't need a gym membership or a supplement for. Welcome to Longevity Lab. I'm Claire.
And I'm Robert. Claire, I have to say, when I saw the title of today's episode, I had a moment of skepticism. Ikigai, I've seen that word floating around in wellness articles. I sort of assumed it was one of those things, nice idea, but not real science.
You're not alone in that. And that's exactly the myth we're addressing today because the research tells a very different story. The idea that purpose is just a feels good, nice to have part of life, the evidence says that's dangerously wrong.
Dangerously wrong? That's a strong statement.
It is. And I'm going to back it up with data. A 2008 study published in Psychosomatic Medicine followed over 6,000 Americans for 14 years. They measured something as simple as, do you feel your life has a purpose? And what they found was that people who scored higher on purpose had a significantly lower risk of mortality across those 14 years. And here's the part that gets me. The effect was consistent across age, gender, and even health status.
So it's not just about people who are already healthy.
Exactly. Having a sense of purpose was protective, even when they controlled for things like physical activity, smoking, and chronic illness. The purpose itself seemed to be the factor.
That's remarkable. But I have to ask, how do you even measure something like purpose? It sounds so subjective.
It is subjective in the sense that everyone defines it differently, but researchers use validated scales. One common one is the Purpose in Life test, which asks you to rate statements like, I have a sense of direction and meaning in my life, or my daily activities feel trivial and unimportant. And those responses are remarkably predictive of health outcomes.
Okay, so this is more rigorous than I thought. But the big study you mentioned, the 50,000 person Japanese study, tell me about that.
That's the pivotal one. It was published in 2019 in the journal BMJ Open. Researchers at Tohoku University followed over 50,000 Japanese adults, aged 40 to 79. They followed them for over 7 years. They asked a single question about Ikigai. Essentially, do you have Ikigai, and then tracked mortality?
And
And the results were striking. People who reported having Ikigai had a significantly lower risk of death from all causes during the study period. And when they looked at cardiovascular disease specifically, the effect was even more pronounced. People with Ikigai had about a 30% lower risk of dying from cardiovascular causes.
30%? That's comparable to something like, quitting smoking or starting regular exercise.
You've hit exactly the right comparison. The effect size is in a similar ballpark to some major lifestyle interventions. And that's the point. We think of health as purely physical, diet, exercise, checkups. But this research suggests that a dimension of mental health, having a reason to get up in the morning, might be as protective as things we spend enormous energy and money on.
I had no idea the evidence was that strong. I mean, I know anecdotally I have friends who retired and then seemed to decline rapidly. I always assumed it was just aging catching up with them.
That observation is actually very astute. There's a well-documented phenomenon called the retirement effect in longevity research. A 2016 study in the American Journal of Epidemiology found that the transition to retirement was associated with a marked increase in mortality risk in the first few years, and one of the strongest mediating factors was loss of purpose or meaning.
So it's not that retirement itself is bad. It's that people lose their sense of purpose.
Exactly, and that's a crucial distinction. Retirement isn't the problem. It's the sudden absence of structure, social role, and daily meaning that seems to be harmful. And the research suggests that people who retire but maintain a strong sense of purpose through volunteering hobbies, caregiving, or even part time work don't show the same mortality spike.
Okay, so the evidence is clear, but I'm guessing you're going to tell me this isn't just about psychology. There's a biological mechanism, right?
There is a real biological mechanism, and it's fascinating. When researchers at Rush University Medical Center studied brains of people who had died, they found something remarkable. People who reported higher purpose in life had lower levels of a specific protein called beta amyloid. That's one of the proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease.
Wait, so purpose might actually protect your brain at the cellular level?
That's what the evidence suggests. And there's more. Purpose seems to influence the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. That's your body's central stress response system. People with a strong sense of purpose have lower levels of inflammation markers like interleukin 6 and C reactive protein. In other words, purpose seems to buffer your body against chronic stress.
So purpose isn't just a mental state, it's a physiological state.
Exactly right. And here's where it gets really concrete. A 2021 study published in Social Science and Medicine looked at over 13,000 participants and measured their purpose levels. They also measured grip strength, which is a surprisingly good proxy for overall health and aging. What they found was that higher purpose was associated with stronger grip strength. Purpose was, in a sense, protective of physical function itself.
That's extraordinary. So someone with more purpose isn't just happier, they're literally stronger.
The data supports that interpretation. Now, we're not saying purpose causes grip strength in a direct mechanical way, but the correlation suggests that purpose influences behaviors and physiological pathways that maintain physical health. People with purpose tend to be more active, more socially engaged, more likely to attend medical appointments, more likely to adhere to treatment. It's not one magic mechanism, it's a cascade of positive health behaviors and biological protection.
Okay, I'm sold on the science. But here's my honest question, and I imagine a lot of our listeners are thinking the same thing. I'm retired. I don't have a job. My kids are grown. My social circle has shrunk. How am I supposed to find purpose at this stage of life? Isn't purpose something you either have or you don't?
That's the common belief, and it's also incorrect. The research shows that purpose is not a fixed trait. It's something that can be cultivated and strengthened, even later in life. In fact, a 2014 study from the Journal of Positive Psychology showed that older adults who participated in a 4-week group program focused on meaning and purpose showed measurable increases in their sense of purpose compared to a control group.
A 4-week program? That's not a huge investment.
It's not, and the activities were simple. They involved reflecting on what matters to you, sharing personal stories, identifying values, and committing to small actions aligned with those values. Nothing extravagant, and it worked.
So, what would you recommend to someone listening right now who wants to do something about this?
3 things, and they're all evidence based. First, identify something that gives you a sense of contribution. It doesn't have to be grand. The Okinawan concept of Ikigai is famously associated with activities as simple as gardening, preparing food with care, or the daily ritual of greeting neighbors. Purpose doesn't require a mission statement.
So, it's about small, meaningful actions, not a life overhaul.
Exactly. The second recommendation from the research is connection. Purpose is not a solitary achievement, it's deeply social. A 2017 study from the University of Michigan found that people who spend time helping others, even small acts, reported significantly higher purpose scores. Volunteering, mentoring, caring for a grandchild, checking on an elderly neighbor. Purpose often emerges through relationships.
That resonates. I find that when I do something for someone else, I feel more Rooted.
You've described the mechanism perfectly. And the third recommendation is novelty. The brain responds to new experiences. When you learn a new skill, visit a new place, or take on a new challenge, you activate neural pathways associated with reward and motivation. That feeling of growth is one of the building blocks of purpose.
What kind of novelty?
It can be as simple as taking a different walking route and noticing what you see, joining a group that discusses books or history, taking a beginner's class in something you've never tried, even something like pottery or a language. The point is not mastery. The point is engagement and growth.
So, purpose isn't about having one big dramatic reason to live, it's about daily living, the small things.
Yes. And that's the part that I think gets lost when we talk about purpose. The wellness industry has commercialized it. Purpose retreats, purpose coaches, expensive programs, and they can be valuable for some people, but the research shows that the most powerful purpose interventions are often the simplest. Ikigai in Japanese culture is not a grand career calling. It's often described as that which makes life worth living. It can be found in tending a garden, preparing a meal for your family, or simply greeting the morning with intention.
That actually takes a lot of pressure off.
That's the whole point. This research is not here to make you feel inadequate. It's here to show you that you already have access to one of the most powerful longevity tools. And you don't need to buy anything, you don't need a prescription, you just need to pay attention to what already gives you meaning and do more of it.
Claire, I have to be honest with you. When we started this episode, I thought this was going to be a pleasant but not very useful discussion, something you might hear at a wellness retreat. But I'm genuinely surprised by the strength of the research. 30% lower cardiovascular risk, less beta amyloid, stronger grip strength. This is real.
It is real. And I want to emphasize something that's easy to miss. The wellness culture has created this idea that there's a supplement or a biohack for everything, but the most powerful longevity factors might be much older, much more human, and much more accessible: purpose, community, and daily meaning.
You said purpose is something you can cultivate. What about someone who is feeling genuinely lost, depressed, who feels like nothing matters?
That's an important question, and this is where the medical recommendation comes in. If you're experiencing persistent feelings of hopelessness or loss of pleasure in life, that's a sign to speak with a healthcare provider. Purpose isn't a cure for clinical depression, but the research is clear. For most people, meaning and purpose are foundational to health.
So, real quick, before we move on, let me make sure I understand the practical takeaway from today.
Please, I love it when you summarize.
Number one, purpose isn't a luxury, it's a biological factor in longevity, backed by real studies on tens of thousands of people. Number two, purpose isn't one big thing, it's built from small daily actions, contribution, connection, and novelty. Number three, I don't need to travel to Okinawa or buy a purpose program. I can start today by asking myself one question: what already makes life feel worth living?
That is a perfect summary. And I would add one more thing. The research suggests that the act of simply naming what gives you meaning might itself be beneficial. There's a study from the University of Pennsylvania that found that people who spent 15 minutes writing about their core values before a challenging task performed better and felt less stress. The act of articulating purpose, even briefly, had a measurable effect.
So just thinking about it isn't enough. I have to actually say it or write it down.
That seems to make a meaningful difference. The neural activation associated with purpose is strengthened when you bring it into conscious awareness. So the daily practice of naming it, even mentally, can reinforce the pathway.
I'm going to try that. I have a morning routine already, but I think I'll add a moment where I just think, what matters to me today?
That's exactly the kind of tiny intervention the research supports. And you might notice that it shifts something subtle in how your day unfolds.
Okay, let's talk about the Okinawan Blue Zone for a moment, because I know listeners are familiar with the concept.
The Okinawan Blue Zone is a fascinating case study for our topic. Okinawa has one of the highest concentrations of centenarians in the world. And when researchers studied them, they found that diet and exercise were factors, but they weren't the whole story.
What else did they find?
The Okinawan concept of moai, a small committed social group that provides mutual support throughout life. And Ikigai, the researchers found that virtually every Okinawan elder they interviewed could articulate their Ikigai clearly and immediately. It wasn't a vague concept, it was specific. For one person, it was gardening. For another, it was teaching traditional dance to children. For another, it was gathering with their moai every day.
So, purpose in Okinawa is woven into daily life. You don't have to go find it.
Exactly. It's not a product to be purchased, it's a way of living. And that's the most important lesson from the research. Purpose flourishes when it's integrated, not compartmentalized.
Claire, I know we're getting close to the end of the episode, but I want to ask you something I think a lot of our listeners might be wondering. What if you're younger? What if you're in your 30s or 40s and you feel like you're just surviving? Work, kids, bills, there's no room for purpose.
I hear that, and the research has something to say about that stage of life, too. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Happiness Studies followed young and middle aged adults and found that even in periods of high stress, maintaining a sense of purpose was associated with better mental health and lower inflammation. And here's the thing, purpose doesn't have to be dramatic. For a parent, purpose can be as concrete as I want to raise kind children. For someone in a demanding job, purpose can be I want to do my work with integrity and help my team succeed.
So it's about finding meaning in what you're already doing.
Exactly. And that's supported by research on job crafting, a concept from organizational psychology. People who intentionally reshape their work to align with their values and strengths report higher purpose and lower burnout. You don't have to switch careers, you can redefine your current role.
That's empowering. I think a lot of people feel trapped by their circumstances, but purpose might be something you can adjust from within.
Precisely. And on that note, I want to share one more study that I think is particularly beautiful. It was published in 2019 in the Journal of the American Heart Association. Researchers followed over 130,000 participants for up to 7 years, and they found that people with a strong sense of purpose had a significantly lower risk of heart attack and stroke. The benefit was consistent across race, ethnicity, and gender.
130,000 people. That's a lot of data.
It is. And when you combine it with the Japanese study of 50,000 people and the Rush University brain studies, you have a body of evidence that is genuinely compelling. Purpose is not a nice to have, it's a health factor.
So, what do you say to someone who hears all this and thinks, okay, I get it, but I don't know where to start?
I would say start with one question. What is one thing you do or used to do that made you lose track of time? That feeling of absorption and enjoyment, psychologists call it flow, and flow states are closely linked to purpose. If you think about what activities give you flow, you're often close to your sources of meaning.
Losing track of time. That's a good test.
And don't overthink it. The research suggests that even small, consistent engagement with purpose, 10 minutes a day of something meaningful, is associated with measurable health benefits. You don't need to change your whole life. You just need to pay attention to what matters.
I love that. Tiny purpose.
Tiny purpose. And I think that's a wonderful note to move toward our outro. Before we wrap up, I want to remind our listeners that if you're enjoying these episodes, and especially if today's topic has sparked something for you, Please subscribe to Longevity Lab and leave a rating or review. It genuinely helps more people find the show.
It does. And Claire, I also want to thank you for turning a concept I thought was fluffy into something that I now see as rigorously scientific. I'm going to think about my Ikigai today.
I'm glad. And I'll ask you the same question I ask our listeners at the end of every episode. What's one small thing you're going to do today, not tomorrow, not next week, today, that gives you a sense of purpose?
For me, I think today I'm going to call my brother. We haven't spoken in a few weeks, and I know that connection matters to me.
That's beautiful. And that is exactly what purpose looks like in real life. A small action rooted in what matters.
Today's rule: purpose isn't found, it's built, one small action at a time.
Thank you for listening to Longevity Lab. I'm Claire.
And I'm Robert. See you next time.
Until then, live with purpose and take care of each other.